Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. If I could have your attention, please.
Hit that gavel, dude.
Could I have your attention, please? Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Hudson Planning Commission for Thursday, April 10th, 2014. I'd like to call the meeting to order. First order of business is discussion, possible action on March 27th minutes from 2014. Any changes, additions in those minutes?
I move for approval. Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Next item on the agenda is public hearing, discussion, and possible action on an application for a conditional use permit by Presbyterian Homes and Housing and Assisted Living for Senior Housing Community Residential Facility. 46 units of assisted living, 19 units of memory care, and a residential care apartment complex. 95 units, 132 beds, has license by the Wisconsin Department of Health Services, located south of Stage Line and east of Hudson Hospital and Health Partners Medical Office Building. Is there anyone here that would like to? Go ahead.
Maybe what we'd like to do is offer an opportunity to Pam Bells with Presbyterian Homes just to explain their project, and we can take public comment after that.
Okay. Pam?
Good evening. I'm not sure how close I have to stand to
You
this.
can hold it if you'd like.
Can I hide
Pull the
behind
mic,
it?
pull the mic right out of there too. If you
Yeah, it comes right out.
We'll just do this. Okay, let me know if I need to do anything differently.
Okay.
Good evening. My name's Pamela Bells. I'm a project developer with Senior Housing Partners, which is the development arm for Presbyterian Homes and Services. And we are here tonight with an application before you for consideration and approval of a new campus. This campus is a senior housing community on approximately 14 and a half acres just adjacent to the east of the Hudson hospitals and clinics. We're really excited about this collaboration that has been a few years in the making. So what you see tonight has been the vision and foresight of our leadership at both organizations. PHS will be purchasing and constructing the senior living community that consists of assisted living, memory care, senior apartments, and a medical suite for DaVita Dialysis that will be providing needed dialysis services to residents near and around the community. This will extend our mission of providing care and housing choices and service opportunities for older adults in the St. Croix Valley. This is an innovative model that integrates the medical suite services with a continuum of care and is adjacent right to the hospitals and clinics. The shared campus concept offers the opportunity to explore new ways to collaborate care and service transitions between independent, assisted, acute, subacute, and other long-term care that wouldn't be possible without the shared campus concept. If you're familiar with this property, this is Stage Line Road that runs along the north here with a new roundabout, which is kind of a landmark for people. So the roundabout will serve as the entry to the whole campus. So we'll share that with DaVita and with Hudson hospitals and clinics. It'll be reconfigured a bit so that we've got a drive that comes into the housing campus. The pond will be extended to incorporate the stormwater flow. And then the campus is snuggled up against the wooded slope. That's all through the eastern boundary of the property. So we're kind of snuggled in against the slope. The medical suite is just a little bit higher ground than the hospital, and then the site kind of steps up and the building steps up with it. We tried to kind of snuggle it into the site so as to minimize the grading that would be necessary on that site. The building will be compatible to the rest of the campus with a blend of colors and siding materials that will complement the palette of materials on the existing building. The materials will be a combination of brick, neutral toned cement siding, accent elements of cement board panels in forest green and burgundy hues. It will have porches at grade level, decks and sunrooms, and some trellises that will really give it a residential character on the campus. It'll have a real contemporary feel, as does the existing buildings on the hospital and clinic. And it will have a flat roof that is also part of that contemporary feel that will minimize its overall height and reduce the visual impact on the residential houses that back up to it on that bluff line to the east. In general, the roof of the new building is approximately 35 feet below the ground at which the houses above sit. So they should, for the most part, just look right over us. We've got some SketchUp modeling of that later if there are questions regarding that. The building will include approximately 160 units, 95 of which are senior apartments that are located in this portion of the building. And then there's assisted living and memory care in this 3-story portion of the building, and a town center element that connects them both. And then the DaVita Medical Suite attached right on the end of the building, the southern, kind of between us and the hospital. The underground parking will be throughout most of this and will provide parking for the independent and all of our service areas. That really reduces the need for surface parking, which is good because the site's a little snuggly. Landscaping is being planned. It's not shown on this schematic and is only partially there, but landscaping is being planned to draw the residents out and to draw nature in, as well as walking trails in a loop around the campus so residents and visitors can walk all around. The senior apartments will have 1 bedrooms, 2 bedrooms, varying floor plans, some with patios, some with decks, some with sunrooms and dens. They'll range in square footage from 700 to 1,500 square feet, so quite comfortable. The assisted living and memory care units are just a bit smaller. There's some studios and 1 bedrooms, and they range from 450 to 1,100 square feet. The town center, as I mentioned in the middle, really is the connection for the campus. It's where residents gather, and it sets the tone for the sense of place and community within the campus itself. It has areas, support areas like administrative offices, the commercial kitchen, conference rooms, that sort of thing, and then resident spaces like the dining rooms, a cafe bistro, a library, theater, media room, auditorium, chapel, and it also has a beauty salon, barbershop, and then an important component in all our communities is a Wings Wellness Center. It's a program as well as a space. That's an equipment, it's got a fitness equipment, and it's got an aerobics room for yoga, aerobics, balance exercises, and an area for Wii and other fitness-related games. It's really part of keeping people strong and independent for as long as possible. Service areas like trash and recycling, delivery, storage of lawnmowers or that sort of thing are all on the lower level of this building. And the loading, or not loading, but the delivery area is tucked down under along the grades here in order to kind of stay out of sight. A campus of this type of housing, when it's full, would have 38 to 40 employees. It breaks down to about half of them being full-time, kind of that 8 to 5, 7 to 2 time frame, and then the rest are second and third shift, part-time. In some cases, we share among other campuses. We've got Boutwell's Landing in Oak Park Heights and Mississippi Shores in right across from Anderson in Bayport, and we'll share a chaplain with those locations. We'll also share a wellness instructor with those locations. So there's some positions that are just part-time and come in for a few hours a day. Generally, we run our shifts a little off of rush peak hours so that we've got people kind of coming in and out in a more spread out manner and not all at once, especially in a situation where we're all sharing the same access. So Presbyterian Homes, I don't want to take a ton more time. I want to be sure that we address your questions. But Presbyterian Homes is really looking forward to working with the city and the community and becoming a good resident and offering what choices and services would be enabling to keep older adults in your community. I just want to point out who's here with me tonight, so if you've got questions, we've got several people that will be capable of answering. If you want to raise your hand when I mention your name, Ward Isaacson and Rob Howard are with Pope Architects. There you are. Nick Kiefer is with DaVita Healthcare. And Steve Mueller-Liley, who's probably familiar to many of you, is with Hudson Hospitals and Clinics. So they are here tonight to answer questions you may have.
Okay. Thank you. We'll hold off questions from us until we hear from the public. Is there anyone here that would like to speak to this matter at this time? Yes, sir. If you could come up to the mic and give us your name and your address, that'd be great.
I'm Tom Bean. I live at 469 Stage Line in the township, so it really doesn't, I'm not one of you.
Sure you are.
But the only concern, and I've talked to some of the other neighbors, and this is not, we have no problem with Presbyterian. We met with them last week, and they showed us the plans and did the same thing. I think it's a great concept and a great thing. The concern that myself and a few other people have is the roundabout. When you're traveling east to the roundabout, where, and this is still with the hospital portion of it either way, is the thing where the road narrows at the roundabout to one lane. Myself and other people have had problems when people are slowing down to go into the hospital, to take the right going into the hospital. And especially with somewhat increased traffic that we're going to see with this project, if there's any way that there can be, well, there's a couple things: better signage and better on the pavement, or if expanding that like some of the roundabouts that we've seen, where you have an actual turn lane to go into the hospital complex is the thing. Like I say, I've had almost a couple times accidents there where people are really, they're still lost of getting into the hospital, and you really had to go over to the left to get away from them, because they'll almost stop right there.
So are they stopping, Tom? Is that what they're doing?
Yeah, I've had people stopping in front of me because they're confused about the roundabout and with the entrance to the hospital.
Okay.
Is the thing. The thing, like I say, I see if it take up their new sidewalk, but if we could keep that 2 lanes all the way there and then make the 1 lane a right turn into the hospital. That's the thing.
Thank you.
But like I say, as far as the concept goes with the Presbyterian, I have no objection whatsoever, and I think it's a great thing for Hudson. So, thank you.
Thank you, Tom. Anyone else? Is there a motion to close the public hearing?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Public hearing is closed. Next item on the agenda is discussion, possible action of development plans for a 1,385 square foot deck and a 2,576 square foot ground level patio, 601 2nd Street, the Smiling Moose. Mr. Donald?
Yeah, Mr. Tamaro or Bruce, do you want to present again your information that was discussed last time?
I may just introduce this first.
Sure.
Yeah, my name's William Radosevich. I'm here on behalf of Smiling Moose and developers Tom Tamara and Mike Tupa. And this is the second time this has been before the board, and they'll give a brief summary. Bruce Lenson is here with the plans again to take a look. And just a couple of issues I wanted to address before we get into looking at those details deeper. One, we were here before for approval of the plans, and it's my understanding at this point that the plans as presented meet all of the city requirements. that there's, we're not here asking for a variance, we're not asking for a special exception, which are some discretionary acts. We are here for approval on the plans which meet all the code requirements, and to the extent that there may be some minor adjustments or considerations made, the developers, want to be good neighbors. They want to work with the city and the neighbors on resolution of those issues, and they also want to be treated fairly. And the bottom line it's basically a decision where I think you've got to look and say, we have ordinances, we have regulations. Are all those regulations that we have met? If so, we think we're entitled to approval of those plans. The second issue, and I know there's been some discussion before of parking, and that's a good problem to have because we know things are happening in the city when we have a defined parking problem now, and I think the city is starting to focus more, and I'd compliment Mary Yakub there, who's indicated, the necessity of the city taking a look at the parking issues and proceeding with a downtown-wide resolution to those problems. And we want to thank the Chamber, including Mary Clara, back when she was director, of replacing the Parking Utility Commission, which the city had, but which was dissolved, and the Chamber, to the extent that it's able, maintained as best it could, and we commend them for their efforts into looking after that issue. My recommendation might be that the city might want to take a look at bringing back the Parking Utility Commission for a couple of reasons. One, it's then within the confines of the municipal organization, the city of Hudson. They develop expertise, and the basic composition was members of the downtown community serving on that board and meeting quite frequently. So today we look at what the parking and how it applies to this building, and we've had some preliminary discussions with some amount of money requested under the category of payment in lieu of parking. Now, I think that that's an extraction of monies that's labeled a impact fee under the Wisconsin statutes and under the municipal code, which adopts the state impact fee statute. And there is a provision in that impact law that says to extract an impact fee, it must be exclusively done under the provisions of the impact fee law. This is not a special assessment. It's an extraction, and there are very specific requirements that a municipality must follow in order to have the impact fee. And you have other impact fees already in the city. But number one, it starts with a needs assessment. Now, I know we've had some studies, but this is a detailed engineering report that's going to look at, say, okay, downtown Hudson, what are the needs? And then secondly, you come in with some cost figures, cost estimates, and from that, a district-wide fee is established to cover new development. I've looked, I made some telephone calls around with city officials, and I do not think that the parking ordinance in its present configuration is an enforceable document because it's not complying with the impact fee statute. So I think that's something that needs to be taken a good hard look at. I think the intent of the ordinance is fine because it brings the problem to the surface, but this isn't a Smiling Moose problem. It's a citywide downtown problem that needs to be addressed in a comprehensive fashion and not on the backs of one particular property. So that, I think, is something that the city really has to take a look and a brief history on the impact and the provision that requires utilization of that statute says after May 1 of 1994 and 1995, if you're going to extract, here's what you must do under that statute. But it came out of the southeast part of the state. And I think there were some cases in Ozaukee County where local suburbs were adding layer upon layer of fees on development. They went to the legislature, and this is what was the end result, to provide some structure and an ability of a developer to come in and say, okay, what are the rules here and how have they been established, and is there fairness in distribution of that burden? So that's my comments on that parking issue, but I think that's something that needs to be taken a good hard look at by the city, not only for this project, but other projects coming down. Bruce Lenson is here to bring back those plans and maybe do a quick review of what's being proposed, and he's willing to answer the questions that you may have. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Radosevich.
Good evening. My name is Bruce Lenz, and I'm put together a design for Tom tomorrow and Mike Tupa on the Smiling Moose, and this will be a review for some of you. But the proposed patio and deck encompasses the west side of the property. This is Locust Street here. I would assume most people are familiar with the site. It's a proposed deck structure above. It's masonry construction and will house seat about 41 people. And there's a stairway which allows access to the lower level. Also the second means of egress and ingress to the building. The materials on the upper, as far as the facade and materials, will be identical to what has been done there now on the existing building, as it's nearing completion of construction on the exterior. There's a canopy roof which will be actually extended out to the end of the deck, and that will be the similar facade. What is required right now by state building code that's been under review is that this parapet wall, there will be a solid wall on the north side of the property, and it will need to extend 30 inches above the height of the roof there. On the lower level, there will be the main entrance is midway down to the alley from the existing building, about midpoint. There will be a bar area, and then seating out into the patio in these areas here. And then to the south side, there's planters for greenery, and then I put a 4-foot buffer, probably 3.5 to 4 feet, along the south side, west side, and then into the corner here, and then this is a corner there's a fireplace right here. Let me think any other. Those are the main highlights. This area here is set up to seat 60 people. There will be a retaining wall required. I can show you best here because the grade does slope down to the alley elevation here. This retaining wall is set back 6 inches from the property line. The north wall is actually 1 foot from the property line, and this and the south wall is set back 6 inches here for construction purposes.
Sure.
I just want to ask about the retaining wall. I thought last time we discussed having it rounded or something for emergency vehicles or whatever need to turn in there. Was that not addressed?
up as a potential issue.
We didn't talk about it.
Did you look at that at all? I'm just, or it looks like the same design.
This is the same design. We haven't really modified, other than when this became clarified on the firewall requirements. We were trying to do everything we could to keep it down in height as low as possible, but building code requires this.
Great, I'm just more concerned, I understand that's firewall. I'm concerned about the 6 inches from the alleyway, thank you.
We're just looking for input from the city. Right now, on the opposite side, on the Phipps side of the property, they actually have about a 14-inch wall, which abuts right to the edge of the alley, and then it's all green space. That's where their lawns are. So the alley, we're looking at, this is where we're at right now, but
Right.
we're willing to look at other
So can I
things
just
that
ask Mayor a clarifying question? So are you still only 6 inches back from the alley, and then you have that wall?
correct.
So the snow plowing and all of that stuff will go where? The snow when they're plowing?
Well, I would assume it would go in the same place it's been going, which they've been plowing part of this area, because all this is asphalt now, and it's all cleared off, both on this property and the adjacent property. And to my recollection, they're plowing some of it onto the Phipps. I would assume most of it onto the Phipps property to clear that alley.
6 inches just doesn't seem very much.
We're just trying to create a green space there, and it also helps with our water, because we're containing all the water from the structure into the green planting areas.
Okay. Anything else from the, everything else? Okay, thank you, Bruce.
Thank you.
Anyone else would like to address this issue before the Plan Commission takes it up? Is there anyone here that would like to address it? Okay, Mr. Doyle, if you could give us your name and your address.
Art Doyle, representing Art Doyle Spokes and Pedals, 607 2nd Street. My concern with the project is the change in parking capacity for downtown Wisconsin. I've been in downtown for 30 years, and at one time it was super easy to park anywhere. And every year it's blessedly gotten more and more of a problem. And currently the parking spots fill up quite rapidly. And so I'm concerned that we've taken a building and increased its inside capacity along with the staff and the customers, and now it's getting expanded again, and the parking lots across the street and every parking spot in front of my building and their building is filled up, and they're taking away parking spots that they have used in the past for their employees of that space. And so they're not only bringing in more employees and more customers, they're also reducing the parking spots that were available for their employees. The ripple effect can be that my parking spots that I have behind my building that my employees use, we will have to have them go park in open parking so we can have spots preserved for our customers, and the ripple effect down everywhere on the alley. If you look behind all the 600 buildings, they all have parking spots behind their buildings for staff and or customers. The only one that has a minimum parking would be left of center, that has just one slot. If you go to the 500 block, you'll find plenty of parking behind the buildings. So I'm not quite understanding why it's appropriate with your increased capacity both for customers and their staff, that removing parking is an appropriate gesture or move, and how it affects the rest of the businesses in town. The town has a lot of restaurants, which makes the town popular, all wonderful things, but at some point in time, parking capacity is reached. And it's been a conversation Not for the whole time I've been here, but for the last 10 years it's been a big conversation, and every year it gets to be more and more and more. And at some point in time, there's just not any more room until something's changed. So maybe if there was a parking ramp in right now, I wouldn't have been having this conversation, but there's not a parking ramp. And the lots are filling up rapidly with employees and customers. My business, of course, as all businesses, depend on having access for my customers' parking. As a bicycle shop, we have people that are coming in with 3, 4, 5 bikes. For them to park 2 blocks away in the residential district certainly will reduce their desire to attend my store. So I am concerned about the parking, and I'm very deeply concerned about the parking, and I'm concerned about how it affects the value of my building. If my building doesn't have access to parking, then the building depreciates. It's a problem for not only my business, it should be a problem for Smiling Moose. I mean, they want to attract a lot of people, but those people have to park somewhere. Without the right capacity, are they going to be parking up in all the neighborhoods? And then you have the neighborhoods going, well, geez, I always parked in front of my house. So the parking thing is a huge deal. It's not something to be brushed aside. So I'm not even worried about the actual business. I'm worried about the parking. Okay? The parking is a big deal. Thank you.
Thanks, Mr.
Let me see if I forgot something.
Okay. I think you covered it all, but you can take a look.
I think so. Parking.
Thank you, Art. Is there anyone else? Amy, if you could give us your name and address, please.
My name is Mimi Fair, and I live in 239 Station Lane North in Hudson, but I'm representing 605 2nd Street in downtown Hudson. I'm the president of Sandine Insurance, located at 605 2nd Street. Our agency is celebrating our 100th anniversary as an independent agency in this city this year. As the adjacent property owner to the new Smilin' Moose, we are facing an expansion which we had not anticipated. We are not in favor of a 30-foot high wall being constructed between our parking lot to accommodate the proposed deck patio extending to the alley. We love the sunshine, the view, the open air, which provides us with a feeling of safety, security, and space. With the construction of a 30-foot wall, we lose all of that. We lose value to our property. The wall would create a dark alley out of our current parking lot, and we are fearful that such a hidden space adjacent to another dark alley could create a haven for unwanted activity. Even more importantly, how would further expansion affect the historic downtown business community as a whole? Will the surrounding businesses be able to find ample parking? The parking issue again. Will the patrons attending a play at the Phipps Center be able to find ample parking? I don't think we know the answers to any of these questions. The current footprint allows seating for 230, I believe. An addition of 130 seats for the deck patio brings us to 360 without considering the staff needed to service those guests and the related parking issues. The downtown businesses have worked so very hard to create an atmosphere which can support a diverse and harmonious group of businesses. The open air concept is new to Hudson, and we do not know how an open air nightclub with live music on Friday night and the DJ music on Saturday night will blend with the community we have now. Will these events cause more strain on our city budget? Will it require more attention from our police department? I don't think we know the answers to these questions. What I do know is that we need to protect what we have. We have the river, the park, the Phipps Center for the Arts, the library, the retail shops, the professional offices, all within a very narrow radius. We have a unique historic district which we market as such. I ask for your careful consideration to postpone any decision for further expansion until we do know the answers to these questions. We have a lot to protect and a lot to lose if we don't get it right. Thank you.
Thank you, Mimi. Is there anyone else? Yes, sir. If you could, state your name and address, please.
Hi, my name is Brent Johnson, and my business is the Lohman Abdo Law Firm on 400 South 2nd Street in Hudson. And I also represent numerous downtown Hudson business owners. Parking is definitely a good problem to have until it harms businesses or deters folks from coming downtown. And so I'm not going to repeat what's already been said here, but clearly this is a big expansion that's going to bring potentially lots of people to town to compete for very few parking spaces. Again, there'll be staff that's required. There's going to be a loss of existing parking spaces. It's my understanding that even under the current operations, seating is removed at night to allow for more of a dance hall type of situation, which increases the density even more. And so I believe this new expanded facility would be greater than 6,000 square feet, and I believe it would invoke the off-street parking ordinance and give the city the option to require payment of fees in lieu of creating off-street parking. I know that Mr. Radosevich pointed out that there may be potential problems with this ordinance. However, it is the ordinance that is in effect now, and it's the one that I guess would need to be applied. The question is, will payment in lieu of parking do anything to resolve the problem in the short term? I don't think that it would. This may be a case where, and certainly the city does not have to allow payment in lieu of parking. It's optional. Under the ordinance, the city shall permit a payment in lieu of parking only where it deems that there's sufficient hardship on the property owner for creating the required off-street parking spaces, or if payment of the fee will significantly be more beneficial to the community or the neighborhood. This might be one of those cases where there's not a sufficient hardship to justify payment in lieu of off-street parking. It may be time now for the city to recognize that perhaps the payments are not effective, and there should be approval contingent upon providing the required off-street parking spaces. This might be the time now that we're faced with this significant new expansion. And so I guess, at a minimum, we hope the commission will consider at least recommending to the city council that time and diligence is needed to study the impact that the new expansion could potentially have. Maybe study, the ordinance. I understand that some of that is going on already, but not make a decision now that we can't turn around and undo later. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else? Mr.
John Potter, representing the Phipps Center for the Arts, 109 Locust Street, celebrating our 31st anniversary this year. Our concern for any establishment that would significantly increase its capacity and perhaps require additional parking would be for a good number of our patrons who are either elderly or of limited mobility. So the concern would be for parking nearby that would allow them to not have to walk for blocks. Now, certainly there are those patrons that would be perfectly capable of doing that, but it's really the ones of limited mobility that we're most concerned with. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Is there anyone else? This is your chance, because once we're done with the comments, we're going to keep it among ourselves. So if anybody wants to comment on this, now's the time. Okay. Mr. Darnold, do you have anything you'd like to lead off with? I've got some comments, but go ahead.
Well, there's been mention of payment in lieu of parking. My calculations for the deck would be 50 seats, which equates to 17 parking stalls being required, which from payment in lieu of parking would be a fee of $42,500. For the patios, 60 seats, $2,500 per stall would be $50,000. So, at least under my calculations, depending if they chose to do the deck only or the deck and patio, there'd be a payment in lieu of parking for an amount of $92,500.
Okay.
There's also under deck and patio sewer connection fees. Those are relatively minor, approximately for both. The combined total would be approximately $4,000.
Okay.
Denny, could you refresh my memory? When they did the initial remodel of the inside of the building, was there any payment in lieu of parking for that?
They weren't expanding the building, so typically we don't collect payment
okay.
in lieu of parking under that situation.
Okay, thank you.
Expanding in the sense of square footage?
That's correct.
And is the building itself under 6,000 square feet?
Well, the total building's approximately 88,000 square feet.
With the multiple levels?
Both levels.
Okay, gotcha.
Primary use is on the top level.
Yep.
Any other comments or questions? Again, we've had some good issues raised about whether or not it meets all the criteria for, they're not asking for a variance. This does not mean that there will be able to be alcohol served on that deck, because that is a city council issue, and they'll have to come back because there is no provision unless they come to city council and get alcohol, expand their service area. And only the city council can do that. It's not up to us to do that here. The impact on the legal fees, Mr. Radosevich, I'm not an attorney, so our city attorney drew that ordinance up, and we accepted that 2.5 years ago. And I guess there hasn't been challenged in court, so I can't answer that question. But maybe that's something we need to delay because we don't know the answer to that. Because tonight it was $92,500 in impact fees. And again, that has nothing to do whether or not we allow alcohol on the deck or on the patio. That's seating and expansion. So I think there's some things that we need to talk about from that perspective. It is a big increase in seating, as Ms. Fear said. We've gone from probably 160 to almost 360 seats, and that doesn't include standing area. And there is a parking issue, and we all know that, and we've got our ramp study that's complete. We're going to be starting that next month, taking a look at that, and how we're going to pay for that if we decide we're going to do that. So I guess the other side of the coin is we can look at saying, we can ask this applicant, the Smiling Moose, to provide us parking spots for how many parking spots we have.
I think we have to keep in mind the Stone Tap, if they turn that into a banquet facility, as was the initial proposal a couple years ago, the capacity of that will go way up. So there's not just this one, but potentially others that could, I'm going to say, flood the downtown with people with no place to go. And I mean,
Keep in mind,
good business is great, but when they're up parking in front of my house or something, or 6 blocks up, that's not good, and that's not good for anybody. So
keep in mind that the study, we budgeted and spent $40,000 for a traffic study for a parking ramp. So it's not that we're behind the 8 ball on this. We are looking at it. We have the study. I have it at my house. I've been studying it. It's been done. And like Alan said, that's something we're going to start taking up now at the next terms here. So we're looking to solve this parking issue as much as we see the needs are there. We're not blind to it either. So wanted to put that out there. Also, I don't know if that covers the needs assessment that Mr. Radosevich was talking about or not. Again, I'm not a lawyer either, but I think a $40,000 study on parking might have covered that part of his concern, but I'm not sure. And then I do have a question. I am concerned that the patio is replacing the parking spots that are currently in back there, from what I understand. So I do have a concern. I think Mr. Doyle has a good point. They're removing, was it 6 spots that were back there for this? That is a concern of mine. At one point, I thought maybe a patio would be a better move than the deck, or the deck patio, or maybe it's a good move to have both if we can find solutions to everything. However, to remove spots right now is a concern. I think we need to really think about that. And maybe we need to start metering differently and for turnover purposes. Maybe we need to start having night meters at night to cause turnover so there's parking available. I don't know, but there's a lot that has to be looked at with both the situation you just brought up, Fred, and this current one. So.
Okay. Mary Claire?
Yep. I think I have a number of concerns, and I don't think we have enough information to move this forward tonight. I think we need to postpone it, and that would be a motion that I would make. A number of concerns. I'm concerned about the only 6 inches setback from the alley. I don't think that's far enough. I'm concerned regarding the lack of fencing or around that patio area. I think it just leaves it wide open for who knows what, for people to easily wander in and out, whether they have alcohol or not. I think that's not very well designed, and that's a huge concern that I have. And I do think, as everyone said, how the parking is such an issue. I think there's so many unknowns yet with this business, and we have worked very hard as a community to create a certain look and feel for the downtown area, and we don't want to lose progress on that. And I would make a motion to postpone this decision tonight.
Okay. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Okay.
I would like to have continued discussion, though, if
Yep.
unless no one else has anything else to say. I just
we
don't
can have
wanna-
discussion.
Just
We
don't
can
want
still.
to cut it off in case there's stuff that we can get answered in the next meeting then.
Well, I want to make another statement, and there's obviously some disagreement amongst neighbors as to the feasibility and how this fits in with everybody, and I don't know if they've had enough time to talk amongst themselves to see if they can come up themselves with a solution to this that everybody can live with. I mean, I'm maybe talking to the moon here, but I do think that that would be the first step in getting a pleasing arrangement for everybody in the front row here. I wish that would be done. I mean, so we don't want to be the problem solvers for people having parking issues and fencing and and setback issues and all that. It would be very nice if that effort could be made, if I may request that.
I think they've met all of our setback. There is no setback issues.
I understand that, but I mean pleasing to all the neighbors. Can they live with it?
Okay.
I know.
I'm not sure that that's something that we should be I don't want to say concerned about, but legally that we can say if they've met all the criteria,
right,
that we deny them.
I'm very aware of that.
We have other decks. This planning commission has approved almost every other deck in town, new decks and additional decks, and so is it that we don't like decks, or is it because it's this particular business, or it's the last one in? Should we have not approved decks at the other locations in town, or outside seating? Because you're the last one in, we need to treat everybody fairly. We want to try and do everything, treat everyone the same, not show special treatment to people who had been here a long time or people that just got here. They all have to be treated fairly. And Pat, you were going to say something, I think.
Well, I just have a question as it would pertain to usage, and one is design that may be more towards Mr. Lenson, and that is the concrete the concrete wall to the north that separates the deck and patio from the neighbors to the north. Is there another design alternative to that rather than it being a solid wall?
If you come up to the
To address that, this is a building code issue. It's a state mandated. That is a 1-hour firewall between the deck and the adjacent property owner. We've done a review with David Gray and with Mike Hafler, who's also involved in this project. And if there's a way that we can reduce it, we certainly will. We're trying to be good neighbors. But at this point, the strict interpretation of the building code does not allow it.
It doesn't make sense.
I don't understand
I could
that.
understand it if they were contiguous to each other, having sharing a common wall, but when it's backing up to air and parking spaces,
That's the interpretation.
the interpretation
That's
that
the
you've been told to
interpretation
work
that
with.
We've been
Okay.
told to work with. Yep.
Requirement because of it being a restaurant?
No.
No.
Right
No,
next
just-
to the lot line, I would guess the,
I mean, this property, the structure itself, just as a footnote, I mean, whether it would be a deck or just an expansion of the building would be allowed to the 31 feet that we're requesting. I mean, my clients are asking for a deck in that area, just so it's treated the same way as a building, as if it was a full structure. Just want to make the point.
okay.
And the other part of my question has to do with outdoor activity and usage. Do we have input on that?
I don't think so.
Okay.
I mean, I think we have input in we have ordinances for noise, and we have, and sound. So I don't think, no, I don't think that's, personally, Danny, do you think it's a planning issue?
Well, we do have ordinances in place, and if those issues come up, I mean, otherwise you're being purely speculative on what the potential causes or concerns are.
Okay.
You've answered my question.
Okay. Kevin?
Well, my comments are, I think we want to hear what the citizens have to say, but we as a planning commission have to do our job, and we have to review plans, and do they fit with the criteria of the city, and, fortunately or unfortunately, depending on what side you are on, the structure of the facility does do that. I think the point was made from Mr. Lenzen that if they were adding on to the building, there'd be that solid wall there on the north side of the property anyway, and they could come in and build a solid building there, and you'd have the same effect as the wall for the deck there. I went at the property today and took a bunch of pictures, and I've been looking at them as we've been talking about that, and the set or the structure to the edge of the property is really no different than what a lot of the neighbors have done. The Phipps to the west has curbs right at the property line. There's other neighbors that are up there that have walls between their properties to separate parking, not 30-foot walls, but there are walls up there. Across the street, there's a railing there that protects the public parking there. That's right on, looks to me like anyway, right on the property line of the alley. So for us to ask the developer to do something different is one thing, but to require them might not be in our job description as far as that's concerned. The thing that does concern me is how the parking relates to this issue. And, a couple of years ago, we had a lot of discussion about the property that was developed right across the street, and that's where we kind of came up with the amount of money for the parking in lieu of. I think it was a result of that development. We did talk to them in length about eliminating parking stalls as part of that expansion program. I know we had, a lot of detailed discussion about, eliminating any existing parking stalls. So that, I think, is a fair topic for discussion. To be honest with you, I would be very concerned to approve a plan unless there was a I guess, a deal with the developer that he would agree to pay the parking, or the payment in lieu of parking, I guess. Because, we have to be fair from one development to the other. Nobody in downtown Hudson has parking. I mean, enough parking for what their business, has. So we have to be fair with everybody, and I would hate to agree to something and then have it argued whether or not that was legal to have that payment.
Okay. Anything else? Mary, go ahead. No, Mary, you had a question. I was going to ask Mary Claire to clarify what information that she was looking for to delay, but go ahead.
Okay, I just wanted to piggyback on one thing you had mentioned, and kind of what Kevin just said too, is which was my point of removing the 6 parking spots. It's not that I don't agree that they're meeting all the codes, Alan, and everything like that. It's that I disagree with eliminating parking spots, even though they're meeting codes. So if they would like the deck and have parking underneath and to expand that way, I'm not concerned about that type of expansion. I'm concerned about expansion that is eliminating what we already are limited on, not having enough of, and we're all recognizing we don't have enough of it. So I don't know why I don't see how it makes common sense to eliminate more of something we don't have enough of,
Okay.
I guess. And also, I agree with Kevin, and also that we have. I wasn't on Plan Commission at the time, but the council and Plan Commission at the time did have payment in lieu of parking enforced for the expansion of the other buildings. So I definitely would hesitate moving forward without enforcing it if it's indeed enforceable, which I still think it probably is. Although again, I'm not a lawyer, but still, I would not want to move forward with something without enforcing that if we can. And I would hesitate to move forward while eliminating existing spots.
Okay.
So.
Go ahead, yes.
I'll argue 2 sides of an argument. I'm really good at that. So when we talk about eliminating the parking, one observation I just have to make as I'm driving through the alleys of downtown Hudson, which I don't do very often, but what this will represent as far as aesthetics for the community and the view from the alley is a lot better than what we have now, which is a lot of dumpsters that are behind buildings and kind of half in the alley and half on their property. And I believe as part of this, the dumpster is going to be inside the building.
I believe so, yes.
Which certainly is an improvement over what we have in a lot of areas already. So.
And I agree with you. It's a really nice looking structure, but it's nice at a cost, and the cost is parking. That's the problem I have.
The 6 spots.
Yes.
Okay.
So.
What was the motion again? And it was to delay?
Postpone,
Okay.
but there was no specific reasons why.
Didn't you issue, Frank?
Are we postponing it? Is the parking study being done now?
No, no. We have a ramp study that we need to review and bring to the council to see what they want to do. But that is not going to be a quickly done item. We have, how are you going to pay for it?
Where are we going to put it?
Where are we going to put it? How are you going to pay? So we're not talking about something they're going to start next week. It's going to take almost all summer to figure out where we want, if we want to do it, if we can afford it, and how do we pay for it. As downtown business people, one of the process is an assessment to the downtown people because you're the ones benefiting. And that creates all kinds of issues with people who don't want to pay for it, but we want it. And we got people up on the hill that say, why should we pay for parking for the downtown when we have to provide parking on the hill? So it's a process that we need to sort through, and everybody has to have their input on. Mary Claire, one last thing. You delay for what information are you? I know you said something about the setback.
The setback and the fencing around the patio area.
Okay.
For safety, and the entrance part, and then the parking.
Okay.
Losing of the 6 spots.
Okay. All right. Sure, Mr. Lenson.
I would like to address your points or your questions here. I've put a green space buffer, so if everyone here is familiar with Pier 500, it's very similar to the depth of buffer on the north side of that property. This wall is about anywhere from 30 to 36 inches tall, and it was created to create, it was put in there not only to deal with the grade, but to create this separation from the public, from both the sidewalk here. This is a 42-inch railing fencing here that is set inside. It's set inside here, 3 foot 8 inches from the property line, for that very reason, to keep this separation and also create a green space. On the north side here, we have a 42-inch wall, which will not allow anyone to go, and that's from the top, from the grade. Once again, this is a 42-inch railing, so that there is an intrusion from the north side, from people entering any other spot. Just want to make that point. Okay.
Someone else had a question? Tom, go ahead.
Can I address the parking, please?
Certainly.
Hello, everyone. I'm Tom Tamero, one of the partners at Smiling Moose. Heard a lot of talk about the additional parking that'll be required by our expansion, and I want to point this out to you. We own several patios on the other side of the river, and what we see, and it happens in every single case, is that people are either inside or they're outside. We don't get them in both areas. So I know there's a real fear that we're going to double our capacity. It just doesn't happen. If it's too cold outside, people stay inside. If it's really nice out, they go outside. So, I mean, that's absolutely how it happens. And with regards to seating, there's a number that's been getting passed around. It's in error. We only have 160 seats inside currently, not 230.
That's what we
So that number is in error. Something else I wanted to discuss, the setback. I know that it keeps coming up. We voluntarily moved it back 6 inches already, and just for the sake of what Bruce pointed out, just to give a little extra space. But if you do go up and down the alley, you'll see, especially at the Phipps as well, they're right on the property line. They've got a large curb with grass right to it. So, I don't understand really where the concern is coming from regarding that. Regarding a rounding off for the alley, we're already set back because of the sidewalk. So we're back quite a ways, so there's really no need for anyone to round the corner. They won't touch our property line.
So I have a question for you, Tom,
Sure.
if that's okay.
You
So
bet.
do you feel comfortable with the payment in lieu of parking fee? I can't believe you're going to say, yeah, I do, but.
$92,000?
Yeah, $92,500 is
No,
what-
sir, Mr. Mayor, I was actually very shocked
Okay.
when I received that number. When we first sat down with Denny and David Gray, we went over the situation before we bought the sports club. We talked about parking, and what we got from the conversation was that we'd have to pay for the 6 spots we gave up, which was going to be in a range of $12,000 to $15,000. So when I got the numbers today, I pretty much fell off my chair.
Okay.
I have to tell you. And
Go ahead.
I just want to address the 6 spots. Okay,
Yep.
I'm glad you brought that up, Mr. Mayor. Thank you. The 6 spots are non-conforming in that you get double parked in if you actually use them. So there'd be 3 in front and 3 behind, and it's extremely hard to squeeze 6 vehicles in there. If you drive by at any time right now, you'll see we have 3 or 4 vehicles in there at any given time. Why? Because you can't get out. You get blocked in. They're just non-functional. So, I want to point that out there. They may be looked at as 6 stalls, but they're not functional as 6 stalls.
Next question I have for you is, if you're not allowed, if the city council decides not to grant you to serve alcohol on the deck because that's part of the liquor license consideration, what's your feeling about that?
I can't imagine why we would build it.
Okay.
Just wouldn't make sense.
Okay.
Anyone else?
Anybody else have any questions? Anyone else have anything they'd like to add? I think we're.
No, but thank you for talking about those 6 spots back
What's that?
there. Thank you for addressing the 6 spots and whether
Absolutely.
they're since I'm not parking back there, it's not a.
Okay.
Sure. If I could, Mr. Mayor, one more thing.
Yep.
I'm sorry. We initially, before we started this, we were going to request a variance. We were really, that's where we were going. We wanted to request a variance and go all the way to the alley with an upper deck. And then with several discussions with Denny, we realized, really aesthetically, because we were going to save the parking underneath. Aesthetically, I mean, if you look at that picture and picture a deck with vehicles parked underneath it, I mean, it's going to look hideous, quite honestly. And that's where we came up with, working with Denny at length, several meetings in person, over the phone. We came up with this plan with Bruce's design and we think it looks beautiful, quite honestly. And the garbages, I mean, they're an eyesore right now. They're huge. They smell. We're putting those in our garage to get them out of the way. So, I mean, I think it's a real win for the city when you look at the aesthetic value. I mean, it's not going to be cheap to build that. That's a big project. So
Thank you, Tom.
okay.
Unless anyone else has, is there anyone else in the audience that wants to say anything? We'll have a final, okay?
Okay.
So at the present time, Denny, can you read the motion back again?
Motions to postpone issues to be reviewed are setback and fencing, entrance into the patio area, and then loss of 6 off-street parking spaces.
Okay. All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Great, if we could have a hand.
There was a hand right
Well,
there.
Kevin, were you going to ask a
I
question?
was
or-
going to ask a question, but that's
Yeah,
okay.
go ahead.
I didn't get you in time.
Okay, so we need to call for the vote again, Alan.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
If you'd raise your hand, please. 4, against? 4-2. Okay, motion carries. The issue is delayed? Postponed. Okay, thank you. Next item, number 5, is discussion possible action on concept development plans for senior housing, community-based residential facility, residential care, apartment complex, and 6,000 square foot medical suite, Presbyterian homes.
Well, let's go back to number 3. I mean, the first issue needs to be addressed is where you want to consider the conditional use permit. Only if the conditional use permit would be considered tonight for recommendation and approval to the council, and you potentially take action on the concept development plans. The reason I put it on the agenda this way is that the information that's required for the conditional use permit is very similar to the information that's required for the concept. So if you're willing to consider recommend approval of the conditional use permit, then I think it's okay to consider the concept plans because they're very similar in nature. They would then have to come back, if the council approves the conditional use permit, come back with their final development plans. Okay? So rather than try to drag this out over 3 or 4 meetings, we're trying to, consolidate this and consider it in potentially 2 different meetings. So I think the first discussion is where you want to recommend approval of the conditional use permit.
Thoughts, comments? Is there anyone interested in approving that?
Can we recommend it contingent upon reevaluating the roundabout, or how do we? Because I happen to agree with the roundabout concern.
Well, the roundabout's basically a different issue, and there you have possible paint striping. And you're not going to change the roundabout significantly due to this project. Are there issues that maybe need to be addressed, such as signage? Part of the issue is you just got to get people to slow down to 20 miles an hour to go through that. If you're doing that, there won't be any problems. But that's not, I'm on my band shell there, but
soapbox.
But regardless, if you're going to have issues there at the roundabout, then we can take a look at that. But
Can we look at it, though, as we're looking at the plans?
Oh, sure.
Yeah, on that? Okay.
Well,
I prefer-
I
Their
just wanted to
plans-
make sure at some point we can look at it.
We can look at that at any
Their plans
time,
aren't
but,
going to change
right.
due to the roundabout.
No, I understand.
But I don't want to spend all the time talking about the roundabout when we have a plan here. We should make a decision on that, and then if we need to fix the roundabout, we can do that.
I don't either. I just think that that's part of the whole overall concept as well, though, in some way. I mean, traffic.
The roundabout, there's a bigger issue there, though. Part of the reason why the roundabout was designed the way it is because you have that small sliver of land that is township between the city and the city out a little farther east there. And in that land that's township, that's not 4 lanes.
Right. No, I understand.
So to have a 4 lanes going to a roundabout, then going to 2 lanes is design-wise difficult. So that's part of the reason why there's some issues there.
No, I'm sorry.
Well, you know, guys, I really don't want to, we can certainly spend a lot of time on the roundabout tonight. We can talk about it for hours if we want, but let's try and keep to the
No, I
topics that we
understand.
have.
That's why I just wanted my question. I don't have a problem with the conditional use permit. I just wanted to know that.
Move a motion to approve?
Second.
Okay. Discussion.
I would suggest there's 4 conditions to be placed. One is the final development plans must be approved by the Plan Commission and Common Council.
Yep.
And secondly, that they have to obtain and maintain the licensing requirements through the Department of Health for a condition for a community community-based residential facility and a residential care apartment complex.
Okay, I'll make that part of the motion.
Okay with the
Second.
seconder?
That was only 2. I thought you said 4.
Well, and then you know there are plans which would get into the details of the concept. That'd be their plans be modified per the city engineer comments, but that's not a requirement of the
Conditional
use permit.
Okay. Discussion on the conditional use permit. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Now you look at the concept development plans.
Yep. Anybody have any thoughts or comments about that?
There were several issues identified by the civil engineer. A lot of them have to do with some storm drainage and then details, but for the most part they're relatively minor, and those plans could be amended for submittal to final development plans.
And again,
Motion to approve?
Okay. Is there a second?
Second.
This is a preliminary, not the final, correct?
Concept.
Concept
plan.
That's what we're talking about here. So is there anything that you see that we'd like to address before the final plans?
Those issues that Denny
Yep.
brought up are the only ones.
Okay. All right. Anybody else? We have a motion and a second, I believe. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Let's go to item 6. Thank you. Discussion and possible action on wireless communication antenna equipment at 509 2nd Street. Mr. Darnold, do you have anything? I think it's pretty
The
self-explanatory.
rest of the evening, just.
Yeah, Mr.
There's someone here.
Blake Conklin from Falcon Foster, representing Verizon Wireless. In regards to this, in 2013, the state statutes changed, which limits reviews by municipalities for wireless telecommunication facilities. What they're proposing are 6 antenna on the top of the building at 509 2nd Street, which basically, if you go a block to the west, the second building in, they are proposing some screening for those antenna, but the only time that the cities can really limit reviews of these issues now are if it's a separate antenna over 200 feet in height, or the antenna is increasing the height of the structure that's being placed on by more than 20 feet. This proposal does not do that, so there's limited reviews. Approval by the City of Hudson, so I recommend approval, but Blake might want to discuss in more detail their specific proposals.
Certainly. Good evening. My name is Blake Conklin. I'm with Falcon Foster Real Estate. We're located at 588 3 Mile Road, Northwest, Suite 102, Grand Rapids, Michigan, 49544, and I'm here on behalf of Verizon Wireless. Verizon is proposing to add telecommunications antennae to the rooftop of the aforementioned building at 509 2nd Street. We'll be placing antennas in 2 locations. In the front of the building, where they will be concealed with a screen that will be made to match the existing brick. And that screen is 3-sided, so side facing the street, the 2 sides of the building.
But is that actual brick that you're utilizing, or
it's not actual brick, because then the RF antennas couldn't operate through it. It's an RF screen that's made to look like brick. The architects are very good at matching things like that. And there will also be 2 antennas on the west side of the building facing the river. These antennas will be painted to match the existing brick color, another way of concealment. The equipment will be located within the existing building. There will not be anything added to the outside of the building. Also, we will not have a cable route running up the side of the building. The cable route will go inside the building. So it'll be in contrast to the large white antennas, an exterior cable route on the adjacent building, or 2 buildings down. Any questions? I'll.
Is a clarification on you're having 6 antenna total, 2
Yes.
and 4?
Correct.
2 on the west side and 4 on the east side.
That's correct. Yes, sir.
Dumb question. Is there any chance that a short antenna could ever be replaced with a tall antenna, or is the technology such now that you don't need to do that?
The technology is such that shorter antennas are almost preferable. With smartphones, it's better to have antennas closer to where the users are. So it's less and less reliance on large antennas that are higher in the air and more reliance on technology like this.
Thank you.
Need a motion?
Yes.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Discussion and possible action on development plans for a 360 square foot addition modification for off-street parking and 9 parking stalls for 2323 Crestview Drive, Taco Bell Border Foods. Good evening.
Good evening, Mr. Chair and Commissioners. My name is Barbara Schneider on behalf of Border Foods. Our address is 5425 Boone Avenue North in New Hope, Minnesota, 55428. I'm here before you tonight to talk about our plan for the existing Taco Bell. I spoke to you probably in January of 2013, and the weather's a lot better, so thank you for that. At that time, there was the possibility, we were in discussions with Hudson Development Center, and they approached our existing landlord about a swap of the pie for property at the rear. That took a while, but it is completed. And we have a new landlord now, and Hudson Center is working through their process of doing that. I'm not quite sure where if it's final yet or not, but in the process. And we are proposing to modernize our facility, to bring her more current with the existing image of Live Moss that is the Taco Bell brand. And we're proposing to expand the building 10 feet out the back, and that allows us to reconfigure our parking, our drive-through access, to a much more user-friendly and addition of 9 parking stalls for the facility. We think it flows very well. There is access now off of the back to the north, so there will be 2 access points onto Gateway Boulevard, one on the north side, one on the east side, if my directions are correct.
Yeah, just matter of clarification, Gateway Boulevard is not going to be the street name, it's going to be Badger Drive. So,
all right, thank you.
Matter of clarification.
Thank you. So there'll be an access off of Badger Drive and one off of Gateway Boulevard as well. And I know when I spoke to you before, There was some discussion about, if future needs would cause Gateway Boulevard to be medianed. So we believe now we've addressed the issue of full access for the restaurant off of the back. We think it's a great project. And we hope that the people of Hudson, we hope that it's approved, and we hope that folks like it.
This has got to be just a wonderful thing for your drive-through.
Yes, it does. She's a little challenging.
Right.
I recommend approval of the development plans for the Taco Bell renovations with the condition that the plans be modified per the city engineer comments, which basically have to do with a lot of detail, specifications, referrals, and then also there's some modifications of storm drainage. There's a fairly lengthy conversation between this project engineer, the city engineer, and the engineer to the Hudson Center as far as direction that stormwater has been resolved, and we just need a little confirmation on some engineering review to make sure that the plans are modified to address that issue. But if the plans are approved with the modifications suggested by the city engineer, everything will be fine.
I'll move that motion.
Okay.
I'll second.
Discussion, questions?
Question?
Yes.
Call the question.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. We probably could have put you on first, couldn't we? Now that I think about it. Sorry about that. Is there anything for future agenda items that anyone would like to add? If not, I'd entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
We're adjourned.